Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. I'm here today with Julie Coraccio, and she is a declutterer and a chief possibility officer, and actually a pretty wonderful human being as I've gotten to know her, which is pretty cool for all of you guys listening. So you will get to know her today too. We're going to talk about obviously decluttering a little bit, but I always try to highlight something in business that we have to overcome in order to make our business work or get our business to the next level. And so we're going to talk about what Julie had to overcome and get better at in order for her business to start to work the way she wanted to. But before we get started, I would love to know, Julie, why it is that you do what you do.
I do what I do. Well, I support people in not only decluttering their homes, but their lives, is because when you clear your clutter, you can create not only a life and home that you love, but then you can share your gifts with the world. I really would love to get to a place where the entire world is passionate about what they're doing and sharing their gifts. Wouldn't that look like a wonderful world to live in?
I mean, that is a piece of the whole be the wolf concept, is the idea that if we are really truly operating from our true self, which is ultimately we're leaning into our gifts, our superpowers, the things that make us uniquely you, that if we're all doing that instead of running around trying to be what we should be and put on this mask to make sure everybody likes me and do all these things, then we actually start to elevate humanity and move things forward, not just in our own lives, but for the ecosystem of the world around us.
Because also when we share our gifts, when we shine our light, we give other people permission to do that because we serve as an example. Well, Julie did it. I can do it too.
Exactly. And that's why I talk to other entrepreneurs on this show is so, the people who've chosen entrepreneurship, there's something in them that they know they have something to give the world. Otherwise, they'd just continue working for somebody else and help other people create their dreams. And that's a great thing to do. But if you've chosen entrepreneurship, there's something bigger you're trying to create. And being able to actually do that is a gift.
It is.
Okay. So as we are about to dive into your story, and we will definitely talk about cluttering the mind and how that gets in the way of business, because I know you work with entrepreneurs as well as other people. And you were at this place in your business, and there were other people who do professional organizing or similar types of things. And you had to figure out how to distinguish yourself, how to set yourself apart. And I think this is, people hear the riches are in the niches and we have to find our little thing, but our little thing has to also align with who we are, or it's not going to come off authentic. But what was it for you? Tell us about the journey of trying to figure out how to differentiate yourself and coming into the world of decluttering and making that your business.
Well, great. But I first want to let everyone know I was 40 when I started my business. So if you're out there saying, oh, I'm too old, you aren't. And I'm very passionate about women starting their own business. So I had started my business in 2009. And at the time, I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina. And this women's networking group had just started, and it was really great. And so one of the things that they encouraged early on was obviously have one-on-ones. You get to know people. So this is literally within the first month of my business. And I sat down with a woman, and the first thing out of her mouth was, I hate professional organizers. They're so wasteful. They're not needed. And I laughed because normally I probably would have shut down, walked away. I just would have not been able to respond. And instead I said, well, why is that? Let's have a conversation, because that, you can be eco-friendly. You don't have to be wasteful in organizing. And I came out of that meeting, I think, hopefully shifting her mindset, but with, oh, you know what? This is what my specialty is going to be. When I was living in Raleigh, there were a ton of professional organizers. And I was like, but this is who I am. I try to be green as much as I can, walk the talk. How can I bring that into a business? And I was the first person in North Carolina to specialize in eco organizing in both personal and business. And so I took that conversation, and then I was able to say, hey, this is what I can specialize in. This is what's going to differentiate me. And I want to talk a little bit about niche for just a moment. What I believe is it's important at the beginning to have a niche, but then you can expand from that. Like I've started other things like coaching, for example, or writing books that didn't have to do with eco organization. So that can serve as a starting point. It doesn't mean that you're always going to have to do that, and you can grow from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when I work with my clients, we figure out values that really resonate for them, not just that look good on paper, because a lot of companies are just slapping these values on paper to like look good, to make people like them. But what really resonates for you, what lights you up, and then what is the bigger mission and purpose of your business? So for instance, if I don't know what your bigger mission and purpose is for your business, but if it was eco, just being eco-friendly or helping save the planet or something like that, that gives you a direction where you can move all of your different things towards. So for me, it really is about unleashing the power of you and evolving humanity, right? I say that always at the end of my podcast. And so that gives me, yes, I coach and work with entrepreneurs, but I could do TV shows, I could write books, there are so many different ways that I can help people to unleash the power of them. I could teach, I could volunteer. There's so many ways that I could help to empower people to unleash the power of them. And so having as a direction is really great. And so you do other things. Tell us about the other things that you do besides the decluttering.
Sure. So I love speaking. I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking. That's another thing. It's the very first time I had to stand up in that group, and you think, 30 seconds. But when you don't speak, 30 seconds seems like an eternity.
Right.
And I said my name and the name of my business, and the women were like, keep going. You can do this, and encouraged me. And so I built upon that. So I love to do speaking. Like next month, I'm excited. I'm doing a presentation all around boundaries for employees. Things like that get me really excited. So I do public speaking. I've written books. I just launched an Etsy store. I'm a little bit on the some people might call it weird. I prefer to think holistic, bigger thinking. So like meditations, things like that. Have authored some books. And I think that's everything that I have. Yeah, I think that's it. Mainly speaking, and then obviously coaching. If I didn't mention that, because that's, again, like you, we all have the answers within. Our job is to help people tease that out and bring that to the surface, because we each know what's best for us.
Yeah. So what is your like the bigger overarching goal that you think all of those things line up with?
Is for people to create a home and life that they love.
Yeah.
It's really what it boils down to, and however that looks for everyone. For instance, you can have a house that's minimalist, but that's not going to doesn't work for me. I have all my mom's paintings on the wall. And finding out what that means for you, because it means different things to different people, and being
Right.
with that. But my thing is, can you think in your office? Can you create in your office? Is it clutter free enough that when you walk into your home, you feel relaxed? You're like, oh my gosh, this just reminds me of everything I have to do.
Right. You said something really big there. Can I create in my office? So I just did a podcast a couple weeks ago about goals and what you need to do to be able to achieve those goals. And one of those things is to understand the motivation about why you want the goal. And so if you want the goal so that you can create something, or the goal itself is to create something, then it's an achievable goal. But if it's to prevent something, you'll never be able to achieve it. You'll never have enough money to feel safe to prevent catastrophe from happening. So when you said creating a space that you can create in, That is huge because if you're in that space and it's like, oh my God, all these things I have to do and la la la, and I have to is about preventing.
Yes.
And so, what is that space in your mind, in your office, in your home, wherever it is that allows you to create and build something?
Absolutely. And I've never heard it expressed the way you did with motivation and have to. That's brilliant. I really like that.
Oh, that just came out of my mouth right now. I mean, I know all the concepts and I know the subconscious underlines, but one of my gifts, I think, sometimes is to be able to put it in language that people can understand. And as I said, it was like, oh, that's a good one. People can get that one.
It is. But that's what one of the things when you talk about clutter, like what are you going to gain when you declutter? Because that can help motivate you. Or if you look at what is clutter costing you. You know,
Yeah.
I fight with my spouse every week about the pile in the living room or whatever it is, right? And that can help motivate you and you understand what you're losing and what you will gain.
Right. And again, I think so many people are motivated about that fear of loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, loss is inevitable. It's a part of life. We have a life and death cycle. So if you stop worrying about what you're going to lose and start thinking about what you will create, you start to do things in a different manner. You're able to do things more consistently, more steadily. And so for different people have a different kind of space in what they can create in. And you mentioned it earlier in the sense like might be minimalist for some person, for another person, it might be having these treasures around them. Whatever it is for you, what's your creative space look like?
Well, so we have behind me, which you can't see, I have my mother, when she was in her 50s, started painting. So I have a bunch of her watercolors. I have a big tarot card of a black cat. We have three black cats. I'm a black cat person. It's called the Protector. So that looks at me. I have different crystals. I have my bookcase over there. So I want to be surrounded by things that inspire me. I like to say to keep my cats to custom to the lifestyle that I've provided for them. I have a little cork board with things that inspire me in a vision, and then books that I can reference or that again that I love to read. So it's very, it's a little messy now because we're getting our hardwoods done in a couple weeks. So we are in the process of don't ever get your hardwoods done once you've settled. So we're in the process of getting everything out. But I want something that inspires me and that I want to be here. And you can see it's purple behind me when we paint. I'm like, I want a color that just makes me happy and makes me excited. I have my mother was a business owner and started her business in her 40s. So I have a when the article the paper did on her, I have that here. And then my dad, when I was living in Los Angeles, he's like, here's this money if you want to hire this guy to help you with your screenplay. So just things that really excite me. And I just want to have one point that I want to bring up about clutter.
Yes.
What I try to impart to people is I want people to see the bigger meaning of clutter. And so what I mean by that is it's not just a messy desk. This is preventing you from writing that great American novel. This is preventing you from spending time on your painting hobby, or an overstuffed closet is preventing you from meeting that person and that relationship that you desire. Because if it's our closet is so stuffed or our space is so stuffed, we can't call into our life what we desire because everything's energy, right? And if you're surrounded by clutter, how can the energy come in? It can't. It's stuck. It's stagnant. It's saying, stop, I have enough. So that's why I want people to declutter. And I want them to think of the bigger picture.
And I also think of for me, my creative space is very clean, minimalistic, some plants. And I have art on one room in my house and it's salon style. So it's all the art. But ironically, it's not the wall that I look at. When in my room, I look at a blank wall. So for me, that nothing that like, I guess it's in a way it's like meditation, right? Nothing. You go into the ether of nothing and then you can create. So for me, that's what works. But it's interesting. I know that the kind of clutter we have is a reflection of our mind. And I just got back from my dad's clearing out my dad's space after his death, and he had like a 4,000 square foot warehouse. He had a sign company, and it was so much I mean, I could see the organized chaos, but it was so much chaos. And cleaning out my mom's house the year before, again, both with borderline hoarding tendencies and so much clutter, and neither of them got where they wanted to in life. My dad's business, he always got by, but he was never what you would say successful. So, can you talk to me about the clutter of the mind, like mirror to the clutter of our space?
The inner reflects the outer and vice versa. Depression can cause clutter, clutter can cause depression. So it's that cycle that you can get caught up in. So, I mentioned everything's energy. So that cluttered desk is cluttering your mind, right? And as you work on one, so as you start to clear up your space, you're going to help clear up your mind. If you start to meditate, then that's going to help you motivate you to get you moving to clear out your space. So it's something to be really important of. And to me, it expands upon that, beyond that. So we can have emotional clutter. Like, what are your knee-jerk reactions, right? Is it always that you get anger? Well, what's going on about that? As you clear that up again, or jealousy is a great example. You have all this stuff in your house because you're competing with Instagram people who are showing you what isn't real life, right? But you feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses or whatever it is. We can have spiritual clutter. So, if you don't have gratitude, again, you might be collecting things. If you aren't able to forgive and things that you can let go, if you can't forgive people in your mind and let go of them, well, it's understandable how you could not let go of the stuff that you have.
Right.
All really related.
Yeah. It's interesting. I talk about this concept of the success zone, and it's a predetermined box of how much success we can hold with the way our mind is right now. So if you clear out something in your mind, like you're able to let go of people, then you create more room in that success zone. It's a closet. There's only so much space you have in the closet. Now, it is possible to expand your success zone, AKA get a bigger closet. That is a totally possible thing. But for now, most people are working with what they have. And so if you can clear out something that's taking up space, you will be able to invite something else in that you might want more.
Yeah. And also, we can have time clutter. So, how much time are you spending on social media? One of the things that people are like, you know what? I don't have enough time. What I encourage them to do is like, let's just track your time for 2 weeks and see what you're spending your time doing. And every single time I have someone do it, they're like, oh my gosh, I had no clue I was spending this much time on Netflix, or I had no clue I was, surfing the internet. And so to become aware of that, or also time leaks, if you have a friend that every time they call you, they want to complain, right? And you don't get them off the phone and you just lost an hour listening to them drone on and complaining, right? That's a leak that you have to stop and to be aware of it. That's clutter.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, going back to public speaking. So, that first time you're on the stage, and anybody who's been in like a big networking group, you get up there, you have to like 30 seconds to sell yourself. Hello, I'm Janaea Barnes, and I do all kinds of awesome things. I love that people encouraged you. And it sounds like from our previous conversation that public speaking, you're doing it now, is one of the things that drove your business forward.
Oh, yeah. And what I did, and I would like to say awareness plus action equals change. So after I did that 30-second, and then I do it regularly because we met weekly, but then someone said to me, come speak to my church group, and it's going to be at our house, and you're going to sit down. You're not going to stand up. This is all really good. And you're going to eat. We're going to get you a plate of food before you start. Total Southern hospitality going on. But I did that and felt good. And then I said to another woman in the group, hey, I know you have a store. Can I do a presentation? I'll do it for free. Right. And I continue to build on that to the point that I got paid. And so if you would have said to me prior to doing, oh, paid, no way. No, I'm too shy. I can't do that. And it's something that I love.
Right.
So be open, I should say, to what else is possible. Right. And don't just shut yourself. Like prior to starting my own business, and I ended up taking my show name. I did for 3 years an internet TV show. I'd go to someone's house. He was a producer, and I'd interview all these body, mind, spirit experts. And it was really wonderful because I was a guinea pig. They'd say, here's my book, read it, or we'll do EFT with you and do tapping and all that stuff. So it was really wonderful. But I always, prior to that, saw myself behind the camera. Well, you're not really an out there person. And so being open to not only what else is possible, but know that you might uncover a gift that you have. Right. And if you would have said to me, oh, I would have never done that. I like being in front of camera now. I enjoy it. Right. I love public speaking. It's things that I think had I not started my business, that was a huge impetus for things. Or again, just saying yes. Someone's like, I remember he called me and he was like, when are you coming and doing the show? Okay, I just have to think of a name, then I'll come and do it. Right. But instead of saying no or saying all the reasons I couldn't do it. Oh, you can't start a business at 40. You're way too old. You can't do that. Well, yeah, I can. Watch out.
Yeah. So what I love about your talking about how your public speaking came about is you took the first little step and then you continued to do that. And that led to another little step. It opened up another opportunity. So each little step opened up what, as we could say, your success zone. So you got rid of something and were able to put the speaking inside. And so 2 points I want to make here. There's the one step leads to the next step. So you're not, a lot of times we think, oh my God, I have to jump forward and I have to create this big thing. So if you might have thought, well, shit, I need to become a public speaker and do these big events and blah, blah, blah. But that is way too many steps ahead to be thinking about. All you had to do was get on stage and say, hi, I'm Julie, and this is what I do. And that's the first step. And that led to the next step and the next step. But now I want to talk about what was it that you replaced in that success zone as you got better at public speaking? So self-doubt. Talk to me about that.
Oh, I'm not a public speaker. I'm a behind the camera. I can't put my face out there. It's self-doubt and fear.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say, brought on by my life, society, 1,000 people, I'm not good enough to do that, right? I can't share my light. I can't put myself out there because I've been told by so many people, you're not this, you're not that. All those little things in my head saying I'm not good enough.
Well, and that goes to, again, it's the lack. Then you can't create from what you don't have. So if I'm not good enough, you can't create from that. So so the self-doubt was the thing that you had to overcome. But what did you replace the self-doubt with as you kept doing the public speaking and kept taking those steps?
Confidence and belief and joy, because I really enjoyed it. When you're speaking and people have that aha moment, or you end up, I'm excited, this presentation I'm thinking I'm doing in a couple of weeks. I've spoken to them before and the employees and having this amazing conversation and seeing people's light up or being like, oh my gosh, I can do that. Wow, I can give myself permission to do that. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Okay, here are the things that I can build on. I can create a boundary. It's okay. I'm being given permission to do that, right? That's what I talked about earlier about people sharing their gifts with that world. And again, you're not going to, I love A to Z. You take those small manageable steps, but you start, right? Was it Goethe that said, the magic can happen. I'm butchering it, but then you just have to take that one start to let the magic begin.
So what were you most afraid of when you first stepped on that stage?
Where do I begin? Making a fool of myself was probably the biggest thing. Messing up or stumbling over words, which I'd be like, yeah, got over that when doing a podcast,
Right.
stumble over things. But probably imposter syndrome too. What do I know about clutter? How can I get up and speak about that? So a bunch of things.
And so I always know that there's something deeper and like making a fool out of ourselves, stumbling over words. What do I know about that? So what was the deeper fear that was like, why were you afraid of doing those things?
I think also being afraid to shine my light. Stay small. Because that's the message I would say I've consistently gotten from my life from multiple angles, stay small.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And when we think about that, especially because most of these things are these beliefs or reasons why we do things start when we're little, like stay small, don't shine your light. And if we're going to build a successful business, we have to get big.
Oh, yeah.
Literally. Like you can't pay your bills and do your things if you stay super small. Like my dad stayed super small and he passed with no money. He didn't have a quote successful business. He got by at bare minimum. And so, what would you say when it comes to clutter? What is because I have a theory about clutter and being small, staying small, but I'm curious to what you think the correlation might be.
Oh, that's a great thing. I think a lot of things behind what I see the most of clutter are overwhelmed, just completely being overwhelmed, and fear. And that fear can be different things to different people, but that's what I see a lot, being overwhelmed and fear.
So, I think this is one thing that I think about people collecting stuff and having a lot of clutter is because they've diminished their own light so much by not moving through the fears and as you said. And so by staying small, they need to still we need to still feel substantial. So we collect more stuff and that becomes sort of an extension of us. And you've worked with a lot of people that just cannot let go of anything that they have. And so I think a lot of it comes from their stuff is an extension of them, and they're trying to make themselves bigger and be seen and exist by having stuff, as opposed to getting rid of the stuff and actually getting big and playing big and being their biggest, fullest selves.
I like that. And I also think with collecting things,
Mm.
that you collect what you feel you're missing in your life. So for a long time, I collected angels. Now it took me a while. This was way before I started my business. I'd been the victim of a crime in Los Angeles. And one of the first, again, like I'm not aware of this at a uh,
Conscious level.
was I got an angel to put over my door that actually still hangs today, but I got an angel to put over my door. Now to me, angels represent protection and love. And once I was able to, and I was never a huge collector, but my mom would be like, "Oh, I know she likes angels. I'm gonna get her an angel Christmas."
Right.
I don't collect. I've have a nice little collection. I'm looking at it now on my shelf that I've curated. But once I figured out, oh, angels equal love and protection to me, I'm like, how do I bring love into my life? How do I feel like I'm protected? Well, one of the things I did was I took a wonderful self-defense class. And that made me feel empowered, and that made me feel less afraid. I'm like, and I've had to put it to use. I'm like, okay, I know I have these skills that if there ever comes a time again where I'm in a situation I can handle and take care of it. So once I figured out what it was, then I was able to take steps to bring that into my life so that it didn't have to be represented by stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just that thing. So you taking those steps to create the protection and safety in your own life from within yourself means also that it can never be taken away. So your stuff could always disappear in an instant. Like you just never know what could happen. But when you find that representation of what the stuff means to you, and you cultivate that within yourself, then you no longer need the stuff. Again, I go back to going through my dad's things with my sisters, and my little sister kept saying, "Do you want this?" I'm like, no, no. Like I kept a painting and one coin because I don't need the stuff to fill up the love of my dad. Like that's within me. I don't need that in that same way. I don't have a lot of sentiment for things because they don't have that association. I don't need them to help make me bigger anymore.
And I piggyback on that.
Yeah.
A lot of times people get really stuck letting go of memories, right? Like your sisters might have taken more than you. Oh, because of my dad, I don't let the memory go. Our memories are in our hearts and
Yeah.
our head. And it's like when the object goes, the memory doesn't. But what we do is we place, oh, my mom is on that painting. And I'll never forget, my dad, I was like, Mom has not even been gone that, a month. And my dad's like, I want you to come over and pick the paintings you want. And God love my husband. So I'm still grieving. It's been a month. And I picked these paintings. Tony comes over and he says, honey, we don't have enough wall space for all these paintings that you want to keep. But because I was in, and I would say another thing, don't declutter if you're really heavy in grief. That's not a good time. But after I say that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take these. And then I was able to really curate what I like and then give paintings to people that knew my mom. And that brought such joy to me because oh, my mom's painting is going to be in their home. Then anyway, just remember when I was like, okay, remind yourself of what you tell other people. My mom isn't in the paintings. So if these paintings were to go, my mom's not going to go. The memories are still there. But that's a place that people really easily, and there's no judgment in this, can get hung up. Well, it's like you can let that first sweater you wore when you met your husband or your spouse or your partner go because you're still here with them. They're still here. Or even if they've gone, you have other memories. Or if you're really struggling again about taking those steps, then maybe you take pictures of it and then you put the pictures on one of those digital frames. Then you realize after a while that, you know what, I can let this stuff go. Or I'll share a story. I had a client, unimaginable grief, losing a child. She lost a baby. And so when we worked together for a while, and it had been about 6 years, and she was ready to let the crib grow, to donate it to someone in need. And I said, don't beat yourself up. This is a horrible tragedy to go through. And sometimes it takes that time that you are at a place of grief that you can let it go. And so what we did is we curated different things of the baby for a shadow box, like a special dress, a lock of hair, things that honored her child and that she could put on her wall and that could celebrate instead of something like the crib, which, was always like that constant memory there, just constant thing. There's not the baby to fill that up, but she had to go through that process. That's why I say, give yourself space and time to heal if you're able to do that. I know sometimes that can't happen. You have your thing like your father, you got to meet with your sisters, you have this time period, you have to get it done. But if you're able to, and be gentle with yourself if you're
Yeah. I think being gentle with yourself is key. And so I know that you work with all kinds of people, but I know you work with entrepreneurs. I'm curious what you've seen transpire in their businesses after working with you. Like if you've maintained a relationship where you actually can see how it affected their business going through a decluttering process.
It's grown for sure. But again, remember, we're working with, maybe there's a little self-doubt we're working in there. I mean, in addition to decluttering and organizing, things that have transpired as I'm going through my head, having a clear idea. Oh, this is what I want my business to be, and this is what I want to do. Because maybe you're like, well, I could do this and that. Which I think, at the beginning, it's you benefit from being more niche and getting more clear on that, because when they get more clear, then they get that laser focus. They know what they need to do and the steps that they need to take. So really understanding that, attracting more clients, right? Because you've cleared that clutter, then you have the space to have more clients. If you're jammed up or your schedule, I learned this point really early on. My schedule every day allows time for opportunity. I do not jam pack. I can't tell you how many times, hey, you know what? Did someone cancel? Hey, I can do the podcast. I can do that interview. I have time. I can switch things around, and not always, right? Because you have set things and you can't always be flexible. But I've had that happen. And when you open up that opportunity, then things come, right? Again, I just want to impress upon people, everything's energy, and your clutter is stuck, stagnant energy. So how can you open that up? So I had one person decide, you know what, I don't want to do the business anymore. I really realized this doesn't make me happy. I'm not waking up every day full of passion. I was when I first started, but I'm in a different place right now. And that's okay, right? You figure out what is it's important. Or maybe you can tweak the business, right? All sorts of possibilities.
I love what you said about making space for opportunity. And so I was just watching something, the guy from Mind Valley, I forget his name.
I don't know if you're talking about, I can see is Deshaun someone.
Yes. Anyway, he was talking about how he was having a conversation with this billionaire once, and they were looking at this expansive view, the most beautiful view ever. And he asked the billionaire, like, how do you do it? How did you become a billionaire? And he said something to the effect of, well, I only work 18 hours a week. So he would work 6 hours on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. He set up his business. So that's all he needed to work, so that he had all this space for opportunity. So he could jump on a plane and go meet with somebody here or do this. And I think every entrepreneur who is an extrovert knows this, and the introverts might not yet know this. But when you put yourself in circumstances that are not the normal everyday circumstance, that's where the opportunity for magic and outside the box opportunities that can really propel you in a different way happen. And you need space to be able to do that.
I'm going to share with you something crazy. I'm not putting it on my list this year, but I want to meet Taylor Swift. Why do I want to meet Taylor Swift? Because she loves cats. And I've been thinking about my legacy. And what do I want my legacy to be? I want to create a cat sanctuary, also one for dogs. But I'm coming up with a plan that I hope can be replicated. And so, like, what I would call a public private partnership. So, like, when I was in Los Angeles, I worked for a nonprofit public private partnership and how you can create success. So, from where I am, I want to do it in the next county over, because I have a friend that writes checks because she's at the bank and in charge of someone's legacy who does only for this county. But I want to do it like, okay, we have a lot of abandoned homes. So we can buy a home, fix it up. We have the land so that we can have the cats. We can create the sanctuary. I have a cat sitter who's on the spectrum, but boy, is she good with animals, but she doesn't make a lot of money. So, okay, you know what? You do the sanctuary, free housing, right? And so how do we create these things to work? And so what I'm putting out there, once I get it going, and I'm working in super at the beginning, but I'm like, I want to meet Taylor Swift. Now, in no world would Taylor Swift and I ever cross, but I don't believe that, because I'm going to meet her. I'm going to figure out, so, hey, Taylor, 5 minutes. So when I send a business plan, I'd really like a donation from you. We can name it after you, whatever you want, but putting it out there and believing that it can happen and having the space. I now have the confidence. If I would have run into her, I don't know, if a decade ago or someone of that level, I wouldn't have done it. But now I have hey, okay, I just want 5 minutes of your time. And I've been visualizing this. I showed the security guard, please look at my phone. These are my goals. Meet Taylor Swift to request a donation for cat sanctuary. Right. And so, I'm not full. Just please show her the phone. And then Megan, you know what? She's going to take the 5 minutes to have a conversation. Thank you for your time, Ms. Swift. I will send something to your office. You can tell me, I just wanted you to put a face. Here's a business card. You can see what I'm about.
It's really interesting that there are things that are really beautiful about your plan, because one, you're working with what you have. So it's like, oh, we have these abandoned places. We could do this. I know this person who's really good with animals. So you're working with what you have. And that is a huge thing for business success. So many entrepreneurs are like, oh, I just have to get this, this, and this, and then I can blah, 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 blah. So your ideas about working with what you have, the space that's available, the people that are available, and then you have this big goal of meeting Taylor Swift. But why? Like, is it so you could be like, oh my God, I know Taylor Swift. Look at this photo of me. That's not it. You're trying to create something bigger. And, it's something she might be in alignment with. So you're not going to go chase down a celebrity that hates cats. Like, that just is the stupidest thing. But, you're being able to come to her with something that she could potentially be super aligned with. And so, again, when you're reaching your goals or you're moving towards your goals, like, what is the reason? What is the motivation for the goal? The motivation is not Taylor Swift. The motivation is about creating the cat sanctuary.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make it happen. And again, like, more, we know she loves cats, we know she's generous, and we know she has money, right? Three things. And again, like, she could say no, but you never know. Maybe she tosses out the business plan and her assistant, who she pays really well, picks it up and is like, wow, I want to donate to this, right? One of the things I've learned is we get upset and we get frustrated when things don't come out exactly as we put them out there. I'll tell just a quick story. So I got married later in life, love my husband, best thing that ever happened to me. So I had this list of 10 things. I want someone who's integrity, good person, right? Just about 10 things. And my first one was I want a guy that's 6'2", right? And as soon as I took that off, I met my husband like a week later. My husband's an inch shorter than me. I'm tall. He's an inch shorter. I wouldn't trade him for anything in the world, right? But that one thing, come on, like 6'2", it's so superficial.
Right. Well, yeah. What was the reason you wanted the 6'2"? Was it so that you
Feel
could?
safe and to feel protected, and he makes me feel that way every single day since the moment I met him.
Yeah. So it it was never about being 6'2". It was about feeling safe and
Yes.
protected.
Yeah.
And so understanding again, what is the motivation for it? And once you take the silly goal off, that's yeah, it's so funny.
Okay.
It's so funny. So when you think about your business and achieving the goals that you've wanted to achieve, that you have achieved, and you've done it later in life, you've done it in a way that people don't typically do it, you've overcome your fear of public speaking. What is the biggest thing beyond self-doubt that you think you've decluttered out of yourself in order to make your business work?
I think believing in myself, and I don't think that I gave myself enough credit. Meaning, I spent time, I looked back on my life and said, "Where did you display courage?" Like, when I was living in Los Angeles, I stood outside the door of a studio. I had all these temp jobs for quite a while, and I worked for this really big executive at Sony, and I'll never forget standing out there, and gave him my script and said, "Can you," and he remembered me. I was a good employee, even though I was his assistant. I did my job, always had integrity, and they said, "Yeah, we'll get this to someone." Right? And then when I thought about that, I was like, "That took guts," right? Because he could have just said no. So I think that belief in myself, giving myself credit. I say this, I don't think I can think of anyone who isn't stronger than they realize.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we realize that when the shit hits the fan,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think those moments are there to show us what we're really capable of, because we are playing so many of us are playing small, because and it doesn't matter whether somebody told you this or that and da da da, but what you've chosen to do with those beliefs as you've gotten older and older. And so if you're willing to challenge them, and, if you don't challenge them, the universe is definitely going to give you a reason to be like, oh, yeah, you think everything's fine and dandy. Everybody thinks everything's fine and dandy. Let's just do a pandemic.
Right. Right.
Let's see
Right.
what everybody's really made of, and push everybody to that place where they have the opportunity to dive deeper into that playing small, or dive deeper into playing big and owning their fullest self, and not letting a bunch of other crap clutter up who they truly are.
Right. And I think it's a challenge as we get older, but trying to remain open and trying to remain curious, right? Like that I talked about with that woman, but I had organizers, right? And in that moment, instead of responding from fear or anger, being open and curious. Well, what can I learn from this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to have one more question, but I want you to tell everybody how they can work with you and how to get in touch with you.
Great. Thank you. If they just go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com, they've got all my links there, social media. I do a free 15-minute consult. And if you sign up my newsletter, 10 quick ways to declutter your life right now, steps that you can take.
Okay, great. And you also have an Etsy store now too,
Yes.
right?
That's for my creative part that I spent all of this year doing. And it's called Declutter Your Life. Lots of good stuff, meditations, affirmations, all my fun stuff I love.
Okay. And that's awesome, because sometimes people aren't ready to necessarily fully work with somebody to declutter their life. So this is ways that they can declutter their life maybe on their own and take those first baby steps. Remember, you get on stage, you say one thing, and that leads to the next opportunity and the next opportunity, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. And also for those of you looking to grow your business and have fun doing it, because what is the point if it's not fun? I've got that guide out there, the 3 secrets that the business gurus never talk about. You can grab that at bethewolfgift.com. declutterer.com. So, everybody, unless you're driving, open up your browsers, reawakenyourbrilliance.com to get in touch with Julie and to grab my free guide, bethewolfgift.com. So, Julie, one last thing. The woman who was getting on stage the very first time to speak and say what it is that she does, what did she need to know to eliminate the self-doubt?
That she was good enough, she was worthy, and she was loved no matter what.
And what would have let her know that?
Oh, that had to come from within. No one else could have told her that. That's an inside job, 100%.
And so, is there anything you can think of that would have set her on the path to learn that beyond what you already did, knowing what you know now?
Know what I know now. I think she had to discover that for herself. I really do. I think that I don't think that that's something that was kind of a lightning strike. She had to understand that. She had to unwind the tape that told her that she wasn't good enough.
Okay.
She had to unwind the tape.
So, and I kind of, as I tend to read between the lines, what I'm reading between the lines is she had to be willing to step into the fear and get messy.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
Feel the fear, do it anyway.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. It gets easier every time, and you show up better every time. And yeah, one step leads to the next. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, your spirit, yourself with us today. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And just a shout out to you. People who don't produce podcasts don't understand the amount of effort and time and energy this takes. So hats off to you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you. And remember, everybody, when you unleash the power of you, humanity evolves. We'll see you next time on Be the Wolf.